So I'm here with Naveed Shams, head of global R&D for Santen, and senior corporate officer as well as the chief scientific officer. So thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, we were going into your background, and it's interesting because we're talking about obviously trends in ophthalmology, and you're talking about in your job you kind of have to look out 7, maybe 10 years into the future as far as what's going to happen, which must be really challenging. How do you decide what to do insofar as that?
Yeah, so it starts with a disease area strategy.
Yeah.
And it starts with a business sort of a plan which says what exactly are we looking for in 10 years, and then bring it down 1 notch and 2 notches, and then R&D takes over and says, okay, this is how we think you can address this need. And the needs are different in different regions. We are an Asia-based company, so Asia is very near and dear to us.
Yeah.
And we are growing rapidly in Asia.
Right on.
And China is also where we are number 1 as well. And so that then determines what does that region need if it's growing that much for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
And the need, as I mentioned, may be different for them versus the needs in Europe or the needs of the US. And so make a portfolio and then take a portfolio-based approach, and say, okay, where should we invest, where should we not invest, prioritize, and then take your best shot in this business.
And one of your best shots these days is the preserved flow microshot.
That's correct.
Yeah. So how did you happen upon that?
That is, we're we're sort of proud of it because it's as I was mentioning earlier, is that we did a strategic review of the disease area of glaucoma and came to the conclusion that if we want to be relevant in the space, and bring value to patients, then we have to actually be in the device space or the surgical space.
Sure.
More and more, it was clear that glaucoma is going to be treated like surgically. Mm-hmm. And there are economics of glaucoma management and therapy are also going in that direction.
So kind of away from drops then.
So kind of away from drops. So drops are never going to go away.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
Okay.
However, I think the spectrum of the disease, early on, middle, and late, the drops will do fine early on.
Yeah.
However, in the middle and late stage, when the patient has progressed from just having high pressure to having damage, actual damage to the back of the eye, then the game changes.
Okay.
And that's where we need these more aggressive but approaches that will provide predictability and durability.
Is that because often of compliance issues? Patients just, they're not following the prescribed treatment, and so therefore they, surgically, if they're implanted, then that compliance issue goes away.
Yes, I think that's, we got it. We got that one. And this will, and only 30% of the patients by some data are compliant with their eye drops. And what happens is that as the disease progresses, you start adding more and more eye drops. Yeah. And so that is not good for the surface of the eye, more and more drops. Okay. And then the science becomes
cataract or pressure.
Yeah, it just dries up your eye, they're itchy and they're red all the time, it's not, you don't want it. So basically, at some point it becomes useless to just keep adding eye drops.
Yeah.
And so these new devices, what they're doing is their value proposition is that if you put this device in, then you can reduce the number of medications that you're taking.
Sure.
So usually, if you're taking 3 meds, now you're down to half.
Okay.
Or something like that. So that is where the value for the patient is. It just becomes. And outcomes, we don't know yet. It's too early. But the hope is that the outcomes over time are also going to be better, meaning progression of disease.
Right. And we were talking a little bit about the trends in the industry. We talked off camera about how Alcon recently has become independent. It has, just gone surgical split from its pharmaceutical unit in terms of Novartis. But you're going the other way, and you're sort of saying, okay, well, we're a pharma company, but it's important in glaucoma to get into devices, as well as you now have an IOL line that's coming out as well at some point.
Yes.
So you're confident that communicators within ophthalmology can both be into pharma and medical device within the same organization and do well.
I think that's not guaranteed.
Okay.
Frank and honest.
Yeah.
But if we want to succeed, we will have to deliberately approach it, because that's the best thing we can do for the patient.
For glaucoma. Yeah.
So we will have to invest time and money and energy to make it happen.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just, why bother?
Right.
Just like have another device and so on.
Right on. Yeah. Does any of that knowledge transfer from, let's say, devices in glaucoma to therefore devices in cataract surgery?
Right. So devices in general, the people who spend time on it have a slightly different mindset.
Okay.
Than a pharma guy. And the technical expertise can sort of move across the device.
Yeah.
But I think the value proposition for a lens versus a therapeutic device like microshunt is very different.
Right.
And that has to be communicated in a manner that the patient understands it, the physician understands it, the payer understands it, the caregivers understand it.
Right.
And so that's a challenge. That is a challenge that we are hoping that we will be able to.
I remember some time ago, it may have been a year ago now or so, I was sitting in a Santen symposium, and it was clear that Santen was using different touch points within disease conditions to to be present in the field. So for example, at that time, I didn't really know about the IOL business getting started, but there was a touch point within cataract surgery, and that was essentially anti-inflammatories. So I thought it was quite smart how at each almost like disease state, Santen was involved in some way, even peripherally.
That's right.
Is that strategic as well?
That is strategic.
Yeah.
And so what we would like to do is, for each disease area or each disease category, we need to understand the patient's journey.
Yeah.
Okay. Before they get sick, immediately after they get sick, blah blah blah, all the way to the end.
Right.
If we don't get a good handle on that, then we cannot intervene, because then it becomes an abrupt intervention.
Yeah.
So our objective is to basically, for the different regions, understand the flow of the journey, and then say where can Santen actually contribute, and not get in the way of big pharma or mega blockbuster deals or things like that. We just want the patient to be doing well, and we think we are not too small, but just mid-size, and so we don't need to be doing billions and billions of dollars or anything. We just want to make sure the patient is happy.
Sure.
And as a matter of fact, moving forward, we are putting a lot more emphasis on getting feedback from patients as early in the development cycle as possible. It's great, because otherwise we listen to the opinion leaders, but unfortunately, I don't know if I should say this, but most of us in the business, we think we are talking to the patient, but we really aren't.
Yeah.
And
too insulated. Yeah.
Customer is the ophthalmologist.
The Saddam Hussein effect, where you're in the spider hole and not really. I see what you mean. Yeah. Two other issues that we've kind of looked at within our firm over the last year or two also has been fluoroquinolones.
Yes.
And it's interesting because I remember a long time ago, maybe between 15 and 20 years ago, talking about different generations of fluoroquinolones. But it's interesting now because there's a resurgence of the need for things like levofloxacin.
That's right.
Because of resistance, and you need penetration in it, and so it's almost like, as far as trends go, going back to the future seems to help in that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think So in Asia, predominantly in Asia, the need is an anti-infective. Really. I mean, there's a lot of infections out there, all kinds of infections. And so we, you may be aware of it, but we developed a high concentration of levothyroxine,
Right.
1.5%. And we are, and that I think has a special place in the treatment paradigm for infections in the eye, or at least the ocular surface. So you can use a low dose for routine prophylaxis, but there are patients who need a lot more and more aggressive therapy, and for them, the 1.5% would be basically a game changer.
Yeah.
So, and also, although this is kind of a bit tricky for the pharma sector, we are interested in developing new antifungals and antimicrobials for the region.
Yeah.
So we sponsored a very large study trying to identify what kinds of infections are predominant in Asia. So southern China is very different than northern China.
Right.
Southern India is very different than northern India. The isolates, bugs are very different.
Dr. Donald Tan was speaking to that recently.
Yes.
And certainly, we think of Asia as one geographic region, but actually, wow, there's so many differences everywhere.
Right. Exactly right. Yeah.
Also, in terms of dry eye, it's interesting because there for many years, Restasis at Allergan had sort of that lock on the market insofar as an actual treatment for dry eye rather than treating the symptoms. It was almost treating the root cause. And now you come into the market with the product, and could you speak to that a little bit, because it's challenging as well.
Yes, it is very challenging. Dry eye is full of dead runs over the last 20 years since the launch of Restasis.
Yeah.
There's been literally no success, and even Xiidra, when it came out, or Zebra, when it was launched in the US, it was expensive and required many trials to get it approved. And so that is a challenge for dry eye. It's too long, too expensive, and very low probability of success.
Right.
From a R&D perspective.
There's also compliance to begin with, because you're also changing the patient's sort of their experience with that therapy in the beginning.
Yes.
Isn't always the most positive.
That's right.
Although they are getting treated and they will get better over time.
Right. So the way we are trying to approach it is we started to say, okay, so the whole world is looking at inflammation as the key for dry eye.
Yeah.
That reminds me, I don't know if you follow this, but that reminds me of amyloid for Alzheimer's disease.
Aha.
For 30 years, people have been pushing amyloid, and we have zero to show for it.
Yeah.
After billions of dollars. So it's time to think of other mechanisms, right? And so that's what a similar approach we are taking is there subsets of patients, is there a disease pathology that is not driven by inflammation, driven by something else. For example, is driven by evaporation.
Yes.
Okay? So you will develop inflammation, but it's driven by lack of tears rather than inflammation. And so that's where we have been focusing our attention, is to say, can we find things where we can improve the quality of the tear and the quantity of the tear. And are hoping that would help us move in that space a little bit more with a high probability of success.
Sure. And the product name, if you'd like to mention it.
We don't have a product name yet. It's in our undisclosed research pipeline.
Okay.
The only product that we have in dry eye is ESCRS. Although we have others like Hyalin, which has been around for a while.
Sure. So you see iCurvis as sort of a current therapy, but you see things beyond that.
I see things beyond that. And so, not easy, but I think we have a good understanding of it. We've been in the space, dry eye space, for a while.
Yeah.
And so I think we can probably deliver something. In due course, but I hope it doesn't take forever.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, Naveed, because I feel like you're very realistic about all this. Some people come on and they might promote products and whatnot, but I feel like you're taking a very realistic view of the company's products and where the future really is going.
Right.
Do you have to do that in R&D essentially? Just be practical?
It's just, well, maybe I haven't thought of it like that.
Yeah.
So thanks for pointing it out. But I do have an issue with hype.
Yeah.
And I've been burnt so many times that, like I said, I mean, if I were making a widget, I could probably be more aggressive. But in this business, it's just the probabilities are so low.
Right.
That if I promise too much and not deliver, that's a big problem.
Well, and interestingly, when we go to shows like the Ophthalmology Innovation Summit or here Ophthalmology Futures recently in Paris, it's a little bit of a hyped environment because you've got new medicines, you've got seed money or venture capitalists looking to invest, but as some slides show, very little of that actually turns out financially well because not everything works. And so maybe that dose of practicality actually helps to at least buffer one from the challenges that life beholds.
Yeah, right on. And what we also started to do was we established a small venture fund.
Yeah.
And so anything that's very risky, we try to get in early and just, we're not trying to make money of the venture fund.
Right.
It's about learning, the risks and benefits of that crazy idea out there. And it gives our people the opportunity to sit on a board and listen and learn,
Yeah.
So that's all in that same sort of mindset of let's figure this thing out and then invest. And the same thing happened with Microshunt.
Okay.
Yeah, Microshunt we acquired after we saw them at one of the innovation the OAS meeting.
Sure.
And so something very interesting.
Yeah.
And so we thought in our strategy it would fit hopefully nicely. And as we are trying to get into the US, we don't want to chew more than what we can deliver.
Yeah.
Right. So it's costly, large investment that we needed. So it fits in with our thought process that there are only about 3,000 customers.
Yeah.
And so I don't need a big infrastructure or anything else. But in this case, we still decided to go with LabPost because they've been very successful from the business side. So we are hoping that we will hit good numbers soon, and the patients will, I think, benefit from it.
Yeah. Just a little bit more on that. I mean, there's a lot of shunts out there these days.
Yes.
How do you, why do you think that this particular microshunt seems maybe surpass the others?
Yeah, good question. So there are two things that also speak to how we look at things. So one thing is the material that is used to make the shunt.
Yeah.
And we should not take that lightly because it can induce severe inflammation.
Okay.
And causes complications.
Yeah.
And people are finding that out with some devices. So that's number one. Choose the right material and not mess up the eye.
Yeah.
The second is to have a realistic expectation of what actually you can deliver.
Yeah.
We don't have to and not hype it so that we think we are the best things in sliced bread.
Yeah.
No, we have a place. In that place, we will manage it, we will control it, and life cycle manage it. And I think we do really well.
Sure.
Yeah, do really well. So,
I have to say though, at our pie and cake cookie themed magazines, we do like sliced bread. So, that's still a good thing. And, finally, Naveed, just maybe a question that hits home a little bit more, but I'm curious what you think because, often again, when we go to these meetings, the innovation summits and these types of meetings, even here at the ESCRS, which is lots of innovative products, it still seems like the communication of innovation is still, for the most part, kind of set in this traditional way.
Yes.
And we're here trying to break out of that, communicate more innovatively. But I wonder if there's ways to partner innovative communication with innovative products to set the path on the right course for the future.
Yeah. No, I think that is 100% correct. So in my role, I have to communicate the value to the various stakeholders.
Yeah.
And if I can't do it, or if my team cannot do it, you're basically stuck in the mud.
Yeah.
And so that communication on the value proposition becomes critical. And so, for example, we had this analyst call a few weeks ago, and I thought, I can stand there with my half Indian, half American accent and talking to Japanese analysts, I don't know what they will get it, they won't get it.
Right,
so
sure.
I thought the best way to do it maybe is show them 2 videos.
Okay.
Show them what the trabeculectomy looks like, and show them what the microshunt procedure looks like. And I am quite sure they will get the value proposition.
Well, we know from experience that those trabeculectomy videos, even though it's called the gold standard, it can be pretty ugly.
And so, I think you're right. You have to get your message across. You have to communicate what exactly are you trying to innovate.
Yeah.
And in our case, in my case particularly, I would really, really encourage folks, at least in Santen we are doing that, is to, how does this actually impact the patient? I understand it impacts your P&L, I understand it impacts blah, 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 whatever, but why are you doing this?
Yeah.
How is the patient going to benefit?
The trickle down is ultimately the patient,
and in
right?
many cases, my feeling is that it doesn't have to be breakthrough innovation.
Yeah.
It can be very simple. So imagine, average age of a glaucoma patient is 75, 76 years old.
Okay.
They have 8 more years to live, 9 more years to live.
Yeah.
And I give them a bottle with all the other comorbidities that they have. They have Alzheimer's, they probably have some whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm asking them to squeeze this thing in their eye. They can't even bend their neck now because they're 79 years old.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
I can't bend my neck, I'm not 79. So for that patient, you can make his or her life really simple, or really, really have an impact by coming up with a solution for this eye problem. How do I? At least they should be able to squeeze it.
Yeah, right.
That's true. And so the innovation doesn't have to be way out there, although way out there is helpful. But so we sometimes forget that if we don't pay attention to the real customer in this business, then we develop things that nobody uses.
Very good.
Happens all the time.
Yeah. No doubt.
There's a story a friend of mine told me, which is he works for a dermatology company.
Yeah.
And the patient had dermatitis, psoriatic dermatitis, and so they made a product. They were very happy and blah blah blah. And then after they tested the product, after making it, they tested it, and they were talking to a patient and said, "What do you think? We think this works really well." So
Okay.
she said, "Do you have any issue?" So she said, I'm paraphrasing all of this. So
Yeah.
she takes a newspaper, puts it on the floor, then takes her ointment tube,
Okay.
puts it on the newspaper, and then scans on it to dispense the drug onto the newspaper,
Okay.
and then takes the newspaper and rubs it. She couldn't care less how innovative that mechanism of action was.
Yeah.
That's not her problem.
Yeah.
Her problem is I can't squeeze the darn thing. You gave it to me, I can't squeeze it. And then when I squeeze it, it won't come off. It takes me 13 minutes to wash my hands. So I use a newspaper. You see? And so we sometimes miss all of that, in our business.
Well, I used to work at a publication which basically there was a dossier to the journalist which said, "Don't ever ask for the patient's opinion."
Yeah.
Only, not even the optometrist's opinion. Only talk to ophthalmologists.
Yeah.
And I took that at face value at the time, but the industry can be a bit insular in talking to one another, not realizing what the actual patient, what the user of all this thinks.
So a lot of the innovation is now changing that and putting pressure on the ophthalmologist.
Yeah.
Because how should I say that? How are you? How meaningful would it be to have an ophthalmologist in the next 10 years?
Yeah.
If I can diagnose my retina problem, if I can diagnose my cornea problem, whatever, why do I need a ophthalmologist?
Yeah.
So,
are you talking to the value of AI?
The value of AI and things like diagnostics.
Yeah.
So I think people need to get to grips with it. And if you want to treat us, and I'm a patient, everybody's a patient.
Sure.
Glasses.
Uh-huh.
You don't think you're a patient.
Right.
I don't think I'm a patient.
Right.
But everything is impacting me and you and everything else. And so if you go to a doctor and he says, "How are you? What's your problem?" Blah, blah, blah. 3 minutes on average, he or she will spend with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
Right?
Absolutely.
And that is where innovation will take care of it. That is where it can take care of it, where if you don't have time for me, okay, fine, I'll go find some solution to that problem, but I need time. I need that human contact.
Well, and you spoke to a problem. We heard on another talk that something like 97 or 8% of young people in Korea have myopia.
Yes. So
and again, I don't really feel like a patient, as you say, but that's like an epidemic, isn't it?
It is an epidemic. And the World Health Organization is on top of it, and Santen is the only company at this point trying to deal with it.
Yeah.
Because it's in our backyard. The problem is, so there is myopia, which is just glasses and stuff, but then it progresses to what's called high myopia.
Yeah.
And that high myopia is a huge problem. And guess what? The main cause of high myopia is education.
Yes. Really?
The more you are educated, the higher the risk that you will develop high myopia. High myopia means -6 diopters and higher.
Why is that?
Because you're reading too much. You're not designed to do that.
I see.
And that's what's happening in Asia.
Yeah.
But you can't tell people not to go to school, right?
Right. So are there other complications of high myopia?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
And Asians suffer from them big time. And so in Singapore, they have a pilot plan, where it says every child has to be outdoors for 2 hours.
That's great.
A simple solution.
Yeah.
Is that innovation?
It kind of is, isn't it?
It kind of is.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So you can't say don't go to school anymore. So the incidence of high myopia in Africa is 5.5% or some number like that. The same incidence in Asia is 56%.
Right.
Or in the 50s. So we have to pay attention.
What are you doing to address that?
We started developing a genetic product actually called Naveed, which is in clinical trials now.
Right.
And Jonathan is the inventor of that in Singapore. We are partnering with Singapore Eye Research to do that.
Okay. Changing the pupil size.
Changing changing the contractibility of the front of the eye.
Yeah.
So that it stops to elongate.
Okay.
And then I'm hoping that after this one, which is just a generic product.
Why generic though?
Yeah, because it's available. Very high probability of success.
Yeah.
And people have asked me, where's the money? Well, that's where Santen comes in.
Yeah.
We all want to make money. Okay, don't misunderstand. You want to make money, but the public health issue, it goes beyond money.
Yeah.
Right.
Kind of a CSR.
We won't lose anything.
Yeah.
But the next generation of products is in the pipeline.
Aha,
So they
a
will,
value
be,
add.
they will be innovative and will deal with the deficiencies of that atrophy. Right. So we have a pipeline, but we should start now because it takes a very long time to develop. We have to start treating children as young as 5 and follow them for at least 10, 12 years. So it takes a long time.
Well, and interestingly, with drops, you're talking about atropine drops, right?
Drops, yes.
Is it a different thing for myopia in terms of compliance versus with glaucoma?
So, no, it's the same issue.
Yeah.
And in this case, as I mentioned, we have 5-year-olds.
Okay.
We have to start at that age
I see.
to slow the progression.
But then it's parents instilling the drops rather than the elderly.
You're moving and screaming. And
Yeah.
So we have to find a solution for that.
Yeah, cool.
We have to find a solution.
Well, it sounds like there is one there. It's just
Yeah, so we're
both
working
willing.
on it.
Yeah.
Working on it, but it speaks to what I think how we are sort of dealing with it on the Santen side.
sustained release myopia drops.
Yeah. You have to balance some of the risks of sustained release, but that's one option. The other option may be a device.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There are some options out there.
Yeah.
But we have to come up with something because it's
Sure.
a long-term problem.
And I just wanted to mention, this is all coming from Naveed Shams, who really was heading up the rollout of Lucentis at Genentech. So, that was such a major thing that happened in the world of ophthalmology. So certainly he sees the future very clearly, and we really welcome him to this program, and thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.